What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Young Professional Show. We have a special one for you today. We have an amazing guest, but without further ado, we need to introduce our host, Andrew Hatfield, standing 5'10", 160 pounds. This man will fight like no other. For your business, the deal, whatever it is, whatever he can do to make impact, this man will make it. This man has changed lives already at a young age of almost 21, and I'm excited to announce him as our host, as well as the number one realtor. The reason why Grant Cardone just does not want to come back to Florida is because of Larry Lonnie. This man has one of the nastiest pickleball hits you'll ever see, and my God, has it been an exciting journey with this one. And without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, started at 19 years old. This guy is a special individual to have on this show, and my God, are we excited to have Mr. Jay frickin' Kinder.
Let's go. How's it going, man?
Is that your real middle name? Frickin'?
Frickin', yeah. I've been called worse.
And better, though, and better.
Yeah.
Well, Jay, this is our chance to really, we really want to find out who you are, man, and what it took to do all the amazing stuff you do. If you have little tricks of where to put an open house sign, great, but that's not what this is about. This is truthfully your mindset, man. That is something that we want to learn about. We want to make sure everyone else can hear about it, because to do what you've done and to start at 19 and what was it, 27, you had the second largest team in the whole world or something like that. I mean,
yeah. I think at 27, I was number 2 in the world for Coldwell Banker, and at the time,
wow.
For several years after that as well. Never was number 1, but certainly feel fortunate. Clawing and scratching my way to the top as far as home sales and all that kind of stuff. And it definitely was a journey, no doubt about that. It wasn't easy, but learned a lot along the way.
What was your first brokerage?
So my dad had bought a Coldwell Banker franchise. He had mainly done property management. So I didn't really grow up around real estate and the traditional sales, like my dad on appointments and that kind of thing. But he bought a brokerage that had a bunch of agents the year I graduated high school. And so I started kind of seeing a little bit of that, early on. And at the time I was going to college, and I went in, I was mowing yards for my dad. I was mowing the rental properties and the people that moved out and didn't mow their yard. That's the kind of yards that he would give me. And so I was going in to get my check one day, and there was a guy named Rusty, and it didn't look like Rusty had worked too hard that day, but he was getting a check for $5,000, and I was getting a check for $400. And that's when I asked him, I said, well, what did Rusty do? What did he do to get that big a check? And sure enough, he had sold a house or whatever. And I said, well, maybe I need to look into this real estate thing. If I just need to do that once a month, I'd be pretty happy at the time. And so that's kind of what got me interested in it. And in the very beginning was just seeing that there was an opportunity you could really make a lot of money.
Yeah. So you started when you were 19.
So how long after?
Yeah. So not long after that, my dad had come to me. He had actually taken a Dale Carnegie course, which is where the first book I ever read that didn't have pictures in it, I read was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And great book. And a guy basically had come in that was doing a Dale Carnegie course and was coming back every week for 8 weeks. Since my dad had been through the course, he was, coming to him to see who he might know that might want to join. And I just happened to be standing up front, and he asked me if I wanted to do it. I said, well, sure. What is it? And I went to that, and at a young age, it was just a really good course to go through. And, it helped me a lot, with public speaking and things that I would have normally not been very excited to do. And it kind of helped get me going, I guess, a little bit in real estate, and overcome some of those fears that you might have in speaking publicly or speaking to people and that kind of thing. And so I went through that class, and not long after that, during that class, I ended up getting my real estate license. And I think I passed. It took me 3 times probably to pass it. I wasn't the greatest test taker. Never claimed to be. I always tell people I wasn't the smartest kid in class, but I always sat next to them. That's one of my claims to fame, finding people that are smarter than me and learning from them. But yeah, I got into real estate, and like most people, kind of struggled a little bit to figure out how to get customers. That was, I think that's the one thing they don't teach you when you get your real estate license is how do you go out and get customers. Of course, I didn't have a sphere of influence. Everybody I knew was still in college doing keg stands. So, there wasn't a lot of, there wasn't a clear path to success. And so I started, basically going to anything that I could learn, not knowing anything, basically. I had no idea what would work, what wouldn't work, but I would go to different, half day classes or whatever they may be and different cities around me and take notes and just go try what I would learn and see what's, what worked and what didn't work. And early on, I learned some FSBO and expired scripts and, did open houses every Sunday for years. It just grinded. And, the more people see you out there doing it, and the more people I met with, finally, somebody said yes. And I was like, okay, it's possible. It gave me some hope, that I could actually be successful. I think I closed 22 deals my first year. And then it was like 39 and then 71. And I just kept setting goals, bigger goals every year. And, tried a lot of things that didn't work and a handful of things that did, and then tried to do more of the things that were working.
Absolutely.
How long did it take for you to be producing more than your dad?
Well, probably my first or second year because he was the broker owner, but he wasn't really ever in production. So he didn't really do much in terms of sales, just mainly focused on property management. And so he didn't really have a lot of advice on exactly what to do. Right. He would let me, tell me to go to these classes, this, that, the other. And, I took my GRI, I got my CRS my first couple of years. So, I mean, I was always in, learning mode. And I think it's just because, if you try something and if you try 10 things and they didn't work, you could get discouraged. But if you try a few things and something works, then you get a little bit of hope and that, hey man, there's something here. And then, you just keep doing that, right? You just keep going, keep learning, keep trying to find a new way. And, I just continued that path of learning and, probably have, more hours in learning than if I would have been a doctor in terms of, learning marketing, learning sales, sales skills training. We had a couple courses that I went to that were sales skills training that were tremendously helpful for me, learning how to navigate and close, in a conversation with a buyer or a seller. All of those things were, skills that are developed, all skills can be learned. And so those are the things that helped me kind of build a foundation. And then it just became, learning how to lead generate, learning how to, find people to talk to. The free stuff was the first stuff I focused on. Like I mentioned, FSBOs, expires. And then we got into some lead generation, different websites and things of that nature. And, learning how to be, have the people skills of being able to really genuinely try to understand what someone's trying to accomplish and then how you can help them. And, I think that, when you really genuinely just want to help somebody, you're not trying to just sell or make a deal or close a sale. People pick up on that vibe. And, I just genuinely liked helping people, like just genuinely interested in helping people with whatever their goals were. And, showed a lot of houses. I showed a lot of houses to a lot of people. Not a lot of them didn't buy, but a lot of them did. And so, that just continued to grow. And as long as you take care of people, they send you referrals, they come back to you after a few years in the business. And I think my fourth year, I did like 110 deals. Then it was 233. Then it was like 367. And then ran into systems and process problems, around people, hiring the right people, having the right systems in place. So we kind of stayed at 300 and something for a couple of years while we fixed operations, figured out kind of how the team structure should look like. In fact, I didn't have a team. I didn't have any buyer's agents on my team until the year I did 233 transactions. I did all of those deals, but about 6 of them. So, I was very efficient with my time in being face-to-face with customers. I got all of the transaction management, all of the, that $10 an hour work stuff off my plate. And it was the things I didn't like doing. And it was the things I wasn't good at anyways, but it just allowed me to stay face-to-face with clients. And so while I don't recommend that, that kind of a workload means you basically work 7 days a week and, 14 hours a day, and have no life. But certainly that was, that was when I started to see I needed more leverage, and started to kind of shift more to the listing side of the business. And, had some buyer's agents that I would let handle the buy side, because you tend to spend more time with buyers than you do with sellers. and yeah, just really focused on the listing side, and that's what built my brand. That's how I, ended up having about 12% market share in my marketplace where I was at, and it was because I listed everything. I mean, I was a listing machine, and some days I would go on 5 listing appointments a day. I had time slots specifically for listings, and the rest of my time was working on the business, and then when I was working in the business, it was face to face with sellers for most of the last 10 years that I was in production.
That's wild to
Yeah.
do. Almost, I think you said 230. So that's like 20 on average a month. And you said you did them all by yourself, except for like transaction management stuff.
Yeah.
That's
I had 4 staff,
nutty, man.
Yeah, I had 4 staff. Yeah, it's I think the thing that is great about real estate, but it's also a challenge is if you do figure out sales and marketing, you can stay busy, you can stay real busy, and if you take good care of your clients, you're going to get referrals on top of all that, and so things start to compound upon themselves, and so that and staying I was active in the community. I joined different civic clubs and things like that, and ambucks, and was just kind of active in the community. I got to meet a lot of the influencers in the community, in my community, and started helping some of them with their real estate deals and stuff like that, and that helps a lot. I think you got to be involved in the community. You got to be a part a part of certain different groups and whatnot. That was helpful for me. I didn't have somebody to mail to, so like when I first tried mailing something, like if you haven't ever tried to mail something, first of all, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Like, who are you going to mail to? What are the results going to be? You have no idea. Well, I chose doing this market study back in 2000, and back then the data was not as readily available, so not really everybody knew what was going on in the real estate market. But I saw it because I went to a Coldwell Banker. It was called an elite retreat, and it was the top agents at Coldwell Banker, and this lady was handing out her market study for Bend, Oregon. And I was like, this is really cool. I was like, man, I could do this. And I kind of geeked out on the numbers. One of the things that being so young in the business that I recognized was that I had to be an expert. Like, I actually had to know what I was talking about. People look at you like you should have been there to mow their yard, not to list their house. So you better at least know the marketplace and what's going on. And so I started studying the numbers and kind of understanding, all the kind of the the stuff you can pull out of the MLS, the days on market and different price points and this, that, and the other. So when people would ask me, I'd be like, yeah, man, there's 1,082 homes on the market. We're down 8% from last year. When I walk in the bank president would ask me, and I would be able to talk intelligently about the market. But I did this market study, and it was one of the best things that I ever did. I didn't know it at the time, but I mailed it to all of the Chamber of Commerce. So everybody was a member, which is basically every influencer in your marketplace, right? So they all own businesses and they influence people. They probably all have employees for the most part. And I mailed this market study that really nobody was doing anything like that. And so, of course, the next year I didn't do it, right? And I started getting phone calls of people asking me for it. And so I had to do it. I had to, back into doing it again. And we started doing it digitally by email and things like that later. And it was interesting because I didn't know this at the time, but 2 of the banks in my marketplace were using my weekly market report that we started doing weekly after we moved from doing it yearly. They would use it in their board meetings to make banking decisions, and they were using our market study. And so that was again influence that I didn't know I was getting. But those are on the board of all these banks are again more influencers and more people that were starting to see that I was an up and coming young business guy in the community, and that I think that helped a lot as well to kind of giving me just a little bit of a little bit of a presence in the marketplace while I was trying to grow the business, but also some notoriety that I actually knew what I was doing, and that I was not just a young kid, but I was actually really a professional at what I did. So I think that was huge being as young as I was, because I certainly didn't act or look like I was a professional sometimes. So definitely helped.
And like getting going early on in your career, are you just running around taking ridiculous amounts of action, or did you have a plan? Did you have goals that you were,
Oh yeah. So a great question. And I will say this is the craziest thing. And in looking back, it's easy to connect the dots, right? But so they used to pass out this goal setting sheet at Coldwell Banker, and then I picked up another one somewhere along the way at a CRS class that I was I had goals, I guess, but I would have probably never wrote them down at this time at this age early on. And so the first year I wrote down, like, I want to make 35 grand. Like, I wasn't very ambitious. I think my 5-year plan was to make 50 grand. Right. And so, I hit that number. And so the next year I fill it out, and I'm filling out the 5-year plan. I'm like, oh, I think I can get to 100 grand, so I'm starting to see that and you take down, like, where did your last 10 deals come from? And so just like reflecting, I would be like, that was an expired, that was an REO, that was another expired, that was a physical. I was like, oh, physicals and expireds are working. I should do more of this. Right. So you start to have some awareness, like things that are really working for you. And, a referral here or there, whatever. And then, you just kind of back into the numbers on, what's your income goal? And then you reverse engineer, well, how many deals do you need to do? And so I'd set those goals, and then every year I would hit them. And even the year that I hit 200 grand, I was probably 21, 20 or 21. No, I was probably 21. And then I set a goal of 500 grand, which seemed crazy to me, like such a huge number at the time, like just bananas. And I was like, is this even possible? And then I did the math, and I reverse engineered how many listings I would have to take, how many buyers I'd have to do. And I was like, this is actually doable. Like, it's actually, only so many deals a week. And I saw that I just felt like it was possible. And then that year I hit $530,000 or something. I know it was 510 or $530,000. Like I just barely hit it, but I hit the exact number. I was like, this is really crazy. that the world just kind of moves out of your way when you get clear on the goal and you kind of know the numbers you need to hit. You're gonna find a way to get there. And then the next year I set a goal, which I thought was even more ridiculous. And I'll never forget, I was on a plane coming back from, it was actually a Coldwell Banker event. And I was breaking down the math, but the sheet that I was using was not built for teams, because they didn't have teams back then. Like, the red book hadn't even come out from Keller Williams. Like, there was no teams. And I was already kind of operating a team. And I was like, okay, I'm going to need, this many deals. And then I've got agents, and I'm going to have this many agents. And they're going to do this many deals. And, I can't remember what the number was, but we did just over 1,030,000 or 1 million and something and some change that next year, which I remember leaning over the seat and telling my parents I was going to do $1 million next year. And they just laughed, kind of chuckled at me like I was crazy. And because nobody had done anything like that, pretty much anywhere that I knew of, at least in the circles I was running. And sure enough, setting those goals and getting clear on exactly what that meant, not just the number of listings taken, number of buyers sold, but the number of contacts made, the number of conversations that have to happen, like really getting into the understanding of what it takes to get a listing, how many people you have to talk to. All of that was instrumental. Of course, at this point, I was doing a lot of marketing. I was starting to really, I think probably, I'm trying to think which one came first. It was probably newspaper. I did these big expensive ads in the newspaper. I did billboards, and then I did radio. And by the time I hit all three of those, the phone started to ring with people saying, hey, come list my house. And these were people I didn't know. And so I knew that there was a way to get listings that was completely different than me ground and pounding the phones like I had been and doing open houses every Sunday and just really, grinding, building relationships and that kind of thing. And that was really when my business changed. And it happened somewhere around that 200 transactions. When I was doing 200 deals a year, I was spending money in this arena. But that was when the phone rang. Like, I remember I went on 2 listing appointments, or I went on an appointment. I came back in the office, and 2 people had called my office, and they said they wanted to list their house, and I didn't know who they were, and they didn't know who I was. They just were, they had seen or heard something or whatever. And so I started getting these appointments of people that were seeing my signs everywhere and seeing my marketing, and they were naturally just thinking of, hey, let's just call this guy. And that was a huge shift for me in my business. And that's when, I really doubled down on, building the brand and being more visible. And, I don't know if it's the right strategy or not. It did work for me, but I would list anything. I would list anything that, especially if it was on a corner lot, because then I could put 2 signs up. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was, the more I could, if it was on a major road where nobody would want the listing, that's a free billboard for me. Like, I took listings no matter where they were. Not all of them sold in that marketplace in Lawton, Oklahoma. They don't all sell. That's just not how it works there. But, you're going to take some that sell, some that don't. But I feel like that strategy of being everywhere, kind of being omnipresent, then I wrapped a vehicle, then I wrapped 2 vehicles, and I got a moving truck. And so, like, just being the most visible agent in the marketplace was once you get to that level, it's really hard for someone to take that away from you because you're just everywhere. People, you can't not see your stuff everywhere. And so, really became a student of marketing. You did a lot of things that didn't work, along the way and whatnot, but really, tried to, learn and study from the best marketers that there are in the world and learned how to do marketing the right way. There was times that I'd have a billboard and we would change the bill. Like, it would look good on the screen. And then we get it up on the billboard. I'm like, oh, I can't read that at all up there. That's terrible. Like, we would have one billboard that got 8 times better results than another billboard. And I just started geeking out on the math, like just really trying to improve every single thing that I was doing and really trying to understand what made something work, what made something not work. And I think, that was a big part of obviously what helped me build a big business.
Wow, man,
That is
just
unreal.
to ask you, what did you do
This
to
one.
accelerate that fast? Like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
how
So,
fast you
man,
accelerate.
so it really is the right things in the right order. So the and again, I've coached a lot of agents to be a number one in their market. So, like, not just have had success, but I actually had to identify what is the right steps in the right order so that you can accelerate and have the same success. So, and having seen the thing, dissecting what I did and then making that teachable and then helping people do the right things in the right order and then seeing their success really ramp up. I can tell you the strategy is really, it's focused around listings. And
Okay.
you have to, and I don't know nobody that I've ever coached. And I mean, it's a list of some of the biggest rock stars still in today. And most of them are still some of them number 1, number 2, whatever in their marketplace, but all doing 3, 4, 500, 700, 1,000 deals a year. They did not miss expired and FSBOs as an opportunity, because when you think about it, if your average sale price now in the US is 400 or 500 grand now, you're talking about a significant commission. It's north of 15 grand. If you can get 2 to 3 deals from FSBOs and expires and did nothing else, now you have not only a good income, but you have a good marketing budget. And now you can start to parlay that. And your time investment working with sellers is less than working with buyers. By the way, if you get listings, you'll get buyers too, right? So, like, naturally, my business was 50-50 buyers and sellers, but I didn't spend any money on trying to get buyers. I only spent money on trying to get listings. And so, not only, but I spent the majority of my marketing budget towards the getting listings. And so, as I would invest in what would have seemed to have been expensive marketing and radio, TV, all these different things, it was getting me listings, which I would spend on average maybe 2 hours with a seller, and the same commission check. Now, it wasn't 15 grand for me, but today everybody would benefit from the much higher average sale prices. And so it just makes the most sense because it's the least amount of time. We did a little market study at NAEA on this, and it was 21 hours average time spent with a buyer versus about 2 hours average time spent if you have some staff and some of the things that you kind of don't deal with after the listing goes under contract. But about 2 hours versus 21 hours. Well, I mean, where's the biggest leverage you can get? Well, it's going to be your time at a certain point. And so the listing side, when you become, you start getting that inbound listing business, it compounds, right? You get a sign, you get a buyer from that sign, you sell that house, somebody down the street calls you, it just starts to compound. And so everyone that, we've helped agents get to like 150, 200 deals, and they were kind of heavily buy side, but the wheels always fall off at some point if you haven't really shifted to try to be at least 50 to maybe 70% listing versus buy side. It's easier and cheaper lead gen wise to generate buyers and close deals. Way cheaper, way easier. And when I start with an agent that's new in the business, I help them with lead gen and I help them with getting buyers because they're easier. They're not, the salesmanship that goes into getting a listing, like all of those things are harder. And if you're spending money doing it and you still don't have those skills, that's why you want to practice on FSBOs and expires, because they are going to give you a hard time. They're going to give you every objection in the book. You're going to learn sales skills naturally, but do it on the ones that are free, right? Like not the ones that you pay money to get people to call you. And so that was, that's what I would say that I've seen from every person that became a mega agent. They all did. They cut their teeth on the skills of working FSBOs and expires, because there's plenty of them, and even more so now in this market. I think the last 10 years there's been a lot less than what I've experienced in the ups and downs of different markets. but that's coming back. And especially because agents don't know and don't have systems around, calling and repositioning when the market's shifting. They kind of just stick their head in the sand. And so when that house expires, somebody's going to get that listing. This is somebody who's willing to pay a commission. They're 6 months behind probably on their goal of what they wanted to do, and they're fair game. And so learning that skill, if you can, amass 2, 3, 4 deals a month pretty easily, in just about any marketplace, that becomes, and there's been, months where I've done 10 expires and FSBOs. And then we started marketing to them. Then we started doing direct mail. We mailed them 13 times in 13 weeks on top of making the calls. And so just continue to go deeper, instead of, doing, going an inch wide, and a mile across. We went a mile deep with the building oil wells around. Like when I stopped calling FSBOs because I was so busy, then I hired an ISA to do it, right? So ISA is making calls all day, and I'm making calls a couple hours a day. An ISA can do what I could do on the phone because I was good on the phone and super seasoned at it. They could do what I could do in a day's worth of calls. Now I've got leverage. Now I'm not making those calls anymore. Now they're calling the expires. They're calling the FSBO. They're also getting direct mail pieces. They know who I am. They're so it's a little bit easier for the ISA to do that. But at a certain point, you get to it doesn't make sense for me to do anything but be in strategic meetings around impact zones of the business and be face-to-face with sellers or hiring agents or training agents or doing things like that, right? Like that, you start to, get to that point. But I think listings are the fastest way to do that.
Well, at what point, obviously there's certain, and like you said, to speak to what you said in the very beginning, it's taking the correct steps at the right times, and at different times in your career and your business when trying to leverage and kind of level up. What was your biggest setback, biggest, if you could have looked back and done it different? I want to know.
Yeah, man. So, I think probably, I can't say that it was a setback, but hiring the wrong people certainly was some memorable, lessons bought or lessons taught. There was some key hires that I'd made at certain times. My very first hire, bless her heart, I just gave her all the shit I didn't want to do. So, it was not the greatest hire, not a long-term hire, but it got stuff off my plate. It allowed me to focus on the things that were making money. So I don't look at it as a setback, but it wasn't probably the right person for that job or whatever. And then after that, it started to really, I think I probably got lucky because I certainly didn't know anything about hiring the right people. But, I got the transaction management stuff off my plate. And then, I stayed focused on, I was working buyers and sellers at the time. Then I added a second one because there was a lot of time that got spent. There was a point, and I'll tell you, most of the things that I learned along the way, I didn't learn because I figured it out. I learned because I would go to some event and I would see some agent that was doing more deals than me. I'll never forget. I went to a Craig Proctor event and I'm sitting outside in the hall. We're talking to some guy and this guy's he's like, you go to your closings? And I was like, yeah, I go to my closings. What do you mean do I go to my closings? He's like, dude, there's no way I could go to all my closings. I got 400 closings a year. I can't go to all those. I'm like, how in the hell do you not go to the closing? And so he broke down this process for it. It was just a mind blow for me. I'd never dreamed that I would not be there at the table with my clients. And it is one of the last things that you can delegate. But even the presenting of offers, again, in my mind, there's no way that I can't be the one presenting the offer until I saw someone who had done it. And I said, well, how are you doing it? And so we talked about how you position it. And we had a certified negotiation expert on our staff that was my listing coordinator. And she if you get, when you get to, 500 plus deals a year, there's no weekend you don't have an offer coming in. So you're basically on call like a doctor. And so instead, we have an expert that, and to be honest, other agents didn't like me because I was just dunking on them all the time. So win listings, taking listings from them all the time. And so it was a small town, so they didn't all like me, but they would tell her everything that we would want to know in the negotiation. And so she was actually better at the negotiating than I was because the agents would be, they would be a little more standoffish to me. And so she was actually more valuable than I was in doing it. And so I delegated, the presenting of offers. So it's amazing what can be delegated. If you can create a process around it, and then generally speaking, if I needed to be involved, you get me involved, right? If they can't get together on the deal and I can, come get me out and I'll help do it, help try to put it together. But and those were things that I enjoyed doing too. I did not enjoy that. I enjoyed it. So I didn't want to let go of it, but there was no way I was going to get time freedom unless I was able to get rid of it. I would never have a day off in my life. And so I would never be able to go on a vacation. Right. And so when when you learn to let go and you do have good people, man, they'll shock you at how well they'll do. Right. And so like when I would leave town and come back and we'd have 5 closings that close, I'd be like, man, they can do this without me. Most of the time I was just meddling in the middle of things and just causing problems anyway. So letting go and giving somebody ownership and letting them know what it is that they own. And Tracy was my transaction coordinator, my main one for the longest time. And I used to be the one that could make a decision on if we cut a commission or we covered something and paid it out of pocket or whatever to try to make a deal, make somebody happy. And I would give away money all the time. I was giving away money left and right. I gave it to Tracy and I said, listen, if it's less than $1,000, just do it. Don't even have to ask me, just do it. She never gave money away, ever. Right. And so it's kind of crazy. You think that you change the outcome and things a lot of times, and you hang on to them because you think you're going to change the outcome. And in reality, somebody might do it better than you. And the more I learned that over time and the more I experienced people doing it better than I was doing it, I was like, I really don't know what I changed the outcome in. Like, I don't know I'm any good at any of this stuff anymore. Right. Like, there's somebody that can do it. And so that delegation and letting go and creating processes so that the value that you would have done if you would have been involved is delivered is critical. And so in making those first couple of hires, and if you're the one doing the work, have them sit behind you over your shoulder and help create the system so that now they're being trained and they're taking some ownership in creating the system. And that way, if they ever leave, now you have a system to train the next person. Because that's probably the biggest problem, is that you'll hang on to somebody because you didn't create a system when you hired them. You just threw them to the fire. And now if they leave, especially if they're like a B player, like a C or a D player, you're going to fire, right? But a B player is like, they're the time that you spend your time with B players instead of time with your family. They're the ones that they're not an A player. They don't get it done 90% of the time the way you would do it. They just do okay, right? And they're the ones that you'll keep for a lot longer, but you really should, if you really need an A player in that role, you're never going to let go of that person. And so a lot of times I hung on to the wrong people because I didn't create systems and processes and clear roles and responsibilities around the position, so that if I did need to replace them, that wouldn't end up back on my plate for a period of time. And that's the last thing you want, is that you get something that's like getting let out of prison and having to go back on Monday or something. When you get out of transaction management, like the last thing you want to do is pick up those files. And so, those were lessons I learned the hard way along the way in hiring and people, is, do it right the first time and make the right hire and create a system around that, the roles and responsibilities, so that they're clear on what their job is and they know what success looks like. And then you do too, because that's, ultimately going to be the determination of whether they're happy in their role or not. Do they see a scoreboard and are they winning? Because if they can see that and they know what the score is and that they're doing their job well, they'll stay with you a lot longer.
I want to know why. In 2017, you made the big move to EXP, and you're the founder of the HoneyBadgers, which I am a part of. So thank you for doing that. Why EXP, and how do you use it to blow up your business even more?
Yeah. So I started a coaching company in 2006 with a buddy of mine, Mike Reese, and we both just felt like, and Mike had got in the business after me and just basically asked me a million questions like every day for 2 years. And he did, I want to say he did his, I don't know, it was a crazy number. I can't remember. It was a million something, 1,200,000 or something like that, his second or third year in the business. It was crazy. Like I'd never seen anybody do it before. But he did the right things in the right orders. And, all along the way, he was saying, should I do this, do that? No, do this. No, don't do that at all. That doesn't work. I helped him with the right, things in the right order. And he exploded. And we were like, dude, this is not that hard if people just understood, what, not having to make all the mistakes. I mean, hell, before he had his real estate license, he had the same website I was using to generate 300 leads a month. So he was getting leads before he even was licensed. And so, having the right systems in place and the right kind of guidance, we saw like, hey, well, we can help other people do this. And we genuinely liked helping other people do it anyway. So that's how we got into coaching and training. And we've done that since 2006. And, what we learned is, as a coaching organization, is people would come to us and, it was $1,500 a month for coaching. We had coaches that did the coaching, and we did group calls and stuff like that, and masterminds and all these different levels and everything, and built a huge business, very successful. We were on the Inc. 5000 list 6 years in a row. And so we were growing this business, and I think we got a crazy itch one day to start a brokerage again. And because we had both stepped out of production and we're kind of focused on this big business. And we just felt like, being close, what made us very valuable in the beginning was we were doing what we were teaching. Like, we were actually running businesses and doing exactly what we were teaching. And so we kind of got away from that a little bit. And so we wanted to get right back in the middle of it. And so we started doing that. Then we started partnering with agents and doing all the marketing. We learned a tremendous amount about marketing, just selling stuff to real estate agents that we would go back and apply to our real estate businesses. And so we just started doing, partnering with agents, and they would come partner with us. We would do all the lead gen. We would do all their branding. We would build all the systems. We actually had a call center. We would do all the calls for them. We would set the appointments. They would just show up on the listing appointment. That was the premise of the business model. But it was a 50-50 split. And so while it was working great, and I mean, we're taking agents that are doing 10 deals to 50 deals, 60 deals in 1 year. And we trained them too, right? Like, that was a big part of what we did, was we trained them on systems, processes, listing presentation, buyer presentation. We had a whole system around it. And so we trained them like Navy SEALs, and we just put them on appointments, and they would go kill it. And it was working well, but we saw the EXP model, and the same people that were in our mastermind, that were like our best students, that were all doing 200, 300, 400, 500 deals a year, all had the same problems. Your best agents eventually leave and go off on their own. And what could we do to make them stay? It was always the topic of conversation. And so, knowing that, if you're going to build a successful business, that, at some point, your best people might leave, and, how do we solve that problem? We were always looking for, hey, what about, giving them ownership, stock. We weren't publicly traded, but we saw EXP was. We're like, that's really interesting. The revenue share was an interesting thing. We would have never dreamed of anything like that, but it was interesting at the time. But we didn't really understand the model. We somebody had told me about it, and then another person told me about it, and then the third person that told me about it was one of my students that was in Austin, Texas. Chris Waters, number one team in Austin, Texas, was a student of ours for years. And he's like, dude, I think this is like kind of like what y'all are trying to do. And so I looked at it again. This time I looked at it a lot closer, because it was Chris Waters that was telling me about it. And so I kind of got excited about the model. And then I was like, we just need to incorporate some of this into what we're doing. And the more we looked at the platform, and then Al Stasik, who's one of our coaches and one of our clients for years, he said, man, I'm thinking about doing this EXP thing. I don't know if it's right or wrong. You got to look at it and tell me if I'm missing something. And so now I'm looking at it for Al. I'm genuinely looking at this for Al. Is it better for Al? Because he had just lost 2 agents that went out and started their own team. And it was the second time he'd gone through it. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is pretty good, man. Like, this is pretty good for Al. This might even be pretty good for me. Like, this sounds good. And I just couldn't get I finally saw it. It's like I was, the one quote I'm known for saying is, if once you see it, you can't unsee it. And when I started understanding, like, I did the math on what, if I built this brokerage I was going to build, which we had a vision of 2,000 agents by December 27th, 2024. And this was in 2016. And so now I'm sitting at, almost 10,000 agents at EXP with, and it's 2023, right? So, like, was it a better platform for me to have a bigger impact on more agents' lives? Absolutely. Been proven to be the case by 5X, right? And a shorter time frame. And so that was what we kind of understood, was this was a platform that allowed us to scale, which we'd already been scaling into different states, which brought on all kinds of problems and challenges. And we had crazy number of legal entities and all these things that we were doing. And I just saw what the next 10 years was going to look like. I mean, I was okay with getting up every day at 4 a.m. I'd done it for most of my life. So, I just knew that that's what it was going to take to do what we were trying to do. Yeah. Or there might be a better way. Right. And so, like, when if there's a better way, I try my best to be open-minded that I'm wrong in everything I'm thinking, because I was super confident we could do whatever the heck we wanted to do. But when I put my ego aside and I looked at the business model of EXP, and I said, whatever anybody's trying to do, whether you're an individual agent or you're building a big team or you're scaling a brokerage nationally, you'd be crazy not to leverage EXP, because you get paid to be an EXP. You don't have to pay them anything. That's the truth, right? And so once I understood that, And I knew that that was true. And I realized I didn't have to have 2,000 employees because they do. And I'm going to be compensated to build here to do it. It was a no brainer. And at the end of the day, the valuation on that company, when I looked at real trends and like what it might be worth, was 1.5 to 3 times EBITDA. So I'm building this big brokerage that I might be able to sell for 3 times EBITDA. And, they're going to ask me to stay on for 2 years, and there's going to be a clawback on anything that any agents that leave or anything like that. And, it was going to be largely built off of my personality anyways. And so there's going to be people that leave, I'm sure. And so I was like, man, that's a gamble. It's a bet that, I don't know how it's going to pay off. I know what my next 10 years is going to look like. So this just looked like a better opportunity. And the truth was, if it's better for the agent, then it was probably better for us too, right? Like if it was truly better for the agent, the stock, the revenue share, the training, the fact that we were going to give everything that we created away to anybody who came along with us, right? We just saw this is a better way to do it than anything we've ever seen. And, putting our ego aside, we're not going to try to go compete with it. We're just going to do it. And so that was kind of the process that we went through. And it wasn't an easy decision, but it kind of was an easy decision. Like it should have been a lot easier, but we really thought through it. And once I realized that we weren't like backing off of our vision of what we wanted to accomplish, we just found a better vehicle to do it with. Right. And that's, I think that's what a lot of agents have to figure out is, hey man, I don't care what it is you're trying to do. EXP is probably a better vehicle to get you to financial freedom than any other vehicle you could be in. And, you got to let go of your broker that you love, or let go of, the colors of the sign, or even the brokerage that you built yourself. Like you gotta be open-minded that you might be wrong or you might be missing something. And I think that's the only reason we don't have 500,000 agents right now, because everybody would be at EXP if they really truly evaluated what's the best vehicle for them to build what they want to build. There's nothing like the collaboration at EXP. The things that I used to pay money to, like the things where I said I learned these big things along the way, going to all these events, I paid a ton of money for all that. It doesn't happen at EXP. Like we're all going to be as shareholders next week with the top agents in the world. Everybody's sharing everything inside the company. There's no, like in the office, in the traditional office environment, the problem was that agent that's down the hall is still your competition because you're in their marketplace. So they're never going to share their best ideas ever. It's not going to happen. They're not going to, not their best ones. They might be nice and say some nice things to you, but they're not going to ever give you their best ones, I promise. And so you had to get out of the office and go to these events and go to these different places and pay to be a part of these coaching groups and do all this stuff to find what other people were doing to get to that next level. And at EXP, that's not the case. At EXP, everyone share. We all have stock in the company. We all get revenue share. We all share our best ideas. And that's what makes it easier for you to be successful, is learning from others. It's not trying to figure it out on your own. It's getting plugged into people that have done it before that are willing to help you. And we all have a financial incentive to help you because A, we get revenue share. B, we get the stock the stock goes up when the company does well. The company does well when agents do well. So there's actually alignment now, and for the first time in the history of real estate, for everyone to work together as opposed to in these little silos and not helping each other because there's no financial incentive. And so, that's the magic pixie dust that people don't get until they're a part of it. They just don't see it. They don't get it. And, we wake up every day thinking about, how do I help these agents in production? How do I help these agents sell another deal? How do I help use the technology that EXP provides to help these agents close more deals? Like those are that's how we wake up thinking because the compensation is in alignment.
Definitely.
Wow.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Jay, honestly.
Yeah, man. I wish. Well, if you're listening to this right now, guys, whoever it is listening, man, these guys know what they're talking about. They're plugged into the right place. And I'm telling you, you might be missing something. There's an easier way to get to success. And it doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of your time to investigate it. So I would highly recommend having a conversation with these guys.
Thanks, man. And let's talk a little bit about like what is life like for you? You look like you're a pretty fit guy, or maybe really fit. I don't know. I only got the headshot going on. Yeah. Like what's your day to day? Obviously, you're still working. Yeah.
So I mean, pretty much. I usually have 5 to 6 calls a day, usually scheduled Zooms and stuff like that with either different people in the organization, either people I've sponsored, anybody in the organization, like a 3-way call with somebody, an agent that might be wanting to come over. And then, we still, our HoneyBadger Nation is our group. And so I still do strategic planning. I have one weekly huddle that we do with that group, and a handful of not really employees. They're all kind of independent contractors, but I only have, I went from having like 50 employees to like having 3 basically. And just like working on, one of the things that we got really good at was execution of ideas. And, to do that, you have to get clear on what are all the ways, what's the goal, what are all the ways to accomplish the goal, and then how are you going to execute it? And so we just did that this morning. We did a strategic planning session, broke down priorities, and went to work on things that we're working on currently. And so I spend a little bit of time doing that. Usually hit the loop here. So I live here in Puerto Rico. I mean, you can't see it because it's sunny. It's probably going to blind you guys, but like I'm up here in probably one of the most amazing places that I've ever been and certainly ever lived in my life. That's just my backyard from my casita. But you live on a golf course in Puerto Rico, pretty much can do whatever I want, whenever I want. But what makes me feel fulfilled is, adding value. So that's why I still do calls. Like to me, I like to be in the trenches. I like to be in conversation. And when I was coaching agents, and we were charging people a ton of money, I didn't have any time. I was managing people. Like I didn't have any time to spend time doing podcasts and talking to people and actually getting to know people and spend time with them. And so like now people think, man, you must be so busy. I'm like, dude, I'm really not that busy. Like I wish I was more. They get, give me a call, man. I'll help you, whatever you need. Like, so, it's that part's fun for me. It always has been. But I've got more time freedom than I've ever had. And, certainly, living a pretty good quality of life, here in Puerto Rico. It's not bad, not a bad place to visit, but it's even a better place to live. So, it's just been good, man. And try to hit the gym, try to stay fit. I'm not as religious as I used to be with that. Usually hit the loop. There's a 5-mile loop we hit usually almost every day here. Either a little jog or walk it just to get out and experience and, not let a day go by and not appreciating where I'm at right now.
Wow, man. Can we come visit you, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Everybody. That's one thing I underestimated is the number and volume of people that will come visit you when you live in a place like this is way higher than I've ever thought. I'm happy for it. I love it. But they come and they're on vacation, right? Like this is their vacation. I'm like, I'm not on vacation. Yep. I can't drink with you every day at the but no, you can come visit anytime, man. I have a good process for showing you a good time while you're here. So for sure.
That's amazing.
Nice, man. We appreciate it.
You got it, man.
God, wealth of knowledge, my friend. You really are. That couldn't ask for more amazing things to hear and listen to and learn from. So thank you, Jay.
Appreciate it, man. Hopefully I added some value and help solve a problem for somebody.
Absolutely.
Or avoid running into a wall. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you don't have to crash into the wall. I tend to crash into the wall and then figure it out. Like, when you find good mentors, you don't have to hit the wall quite as hard, at least anyway.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's incredible. You definitely, you should see the sheet of stuff these are all notes of what you said. I'm going to implement a lot of stuff. I hope people listening do the exact same thing. But Jay, where can the people listening find out more about you and let us know of some stuff you got coming up?
Yeah, man. So, first of all, I'll be at Shareholders in Orlando next week. So if you're going to be there, reach out to me. I had my Instagram hacked at like 65,000 followers. So my Instagram's a little light right now, but that's one way you can find me. It'll look like it's not my account, but it is. It's actually just kind of getting going again. But you can find me on Facebook. You look me up, Google me. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm not hard to find. So if there's somebody needs something, wants some help with something, just reach out. I'll be happy to help.